Here's the one, the only, the original Captain Stubby. Captain?
Well, thank you. All right. Well, thank you very much, Joanne. It's a beautiful day. Glad to be here with you, and I hope you're all set to have a good time. That's what we're here for. I don't think we laugh enough these days. We need to do something about it. I was just reading here. They gave me a message. Seems like somebody lost a gold watch here today, and a lady by the name of Helen Hunt found it, and she's at the back of the tent back there. So if anybody lost a gold watch here, you have to go to Helen Hunt for it. You got to read all this stuff ahead of time. I tell you. Well, the company, they kind of flew me down here in a plane. Gosh, it was a cheap fare they had. I didn't know he was going to spray crops on the way. Some people are afraid of flying, but you know, folks, I do so much flying. I'm used to it. But I can't blame people who are scared of flying, because you think about it, when you take off in a plane and you look back down at the airport, the last word you see is terminal. Oh, you talk about fun. I was out in McCook, Nebraska not too long ago. Now, to get to McCook, it's practically impossible. But I flew from Indianapolis to Lincoln, Nebraska. Now, that's easy. But I had to make 4 stops to get to McCook. And every time we made a stop in a different airport, they gave us a smaller plane. And I tell you, I didn't know where I was going to land. But on that last trip from Grand Island to McCook, they got us in a little plane there. Before we took off, they took us back into the airport and asked each one of us how much we weighed. Well, I said, why do you want to know how much we weigh? Well, the guy said, so we'll know how much fuel to put in the plane. I said, are you kidding? Fill it up. I said, I don't want to go down in a plane because some fat woman lied about her weight. Now, I tell you, like I say, you can have all kinds of experiences flying. I was flying from Pittsburgh to Indianapolis not too long ago, and there's a woman sitting right next to me. She had a little bitty baby. Oh, it was a little one. And you know, that little child was just crying, and I knew what the trouble was. The kid, you know, the air pressure on their ears when you are climbing altitude or coming down, their ears just pop and snap, and the kids don't know what it is, so they just cry. And this little fellow was just crying, and she finally, in desperation, she just undone her blouse and started nursing him. And she said, that'll stop that ear popping. And I said, by golly, and to think all these years I've been using chewing gum. They got me in a little motel out here. The company did. They put me, gosh, it's a little motel. I tell you, my room, I stuck the key in the door and broke the window. It's a sight. And the fellow, when I signed up, he said, do you want a room with a bath or do you want a room with a shower? Well, I said, what's the difference? Well, he said, with a shower, you got to stand up. I said, come on, guy. And they had everything in the room. I guess I needed a Gideon Bible there. And I leafed through it, you know, and I saw a card in the Bible there. And I looked at the card and said, if you're an alcoholic, call this number. Well, gosh, I don't have that problem, but I thought I'd just call, see, you know. It was a liquor store 2 blocks away. Oh. You know, you go around over the country and you find different places, different customs. I was up in Wisconsin. Now, I don't know how many have traveled up there, but up in Wisconsin, they got what they call supper clubs. Now, those are just big fancy restaurants out in the country. And they're pretty swanky, most of them. And I know I tried to go into one day. I was up there, I was hungry, went up to the door, and the head waiter met me at the door, said, "You can't come in here, you don't have a tie on." Well, I said, "Gee, I don't think I even got a tie with me." Well, he said, "Get something. I can't accept this. Get something." So I went out in my pickup truck and looked around and see if I could find anything. By gosh, I couldn't. The only thing I could find there was a set of jumper cable. Well, I thought, why not, you know? So I did coil them around my neck, kind of neat-like, you know, wound them around there, and I went up to the door again. And this guy met me at the door. I said, "Well, how's this look?" "Oh, well," he said, "all right." He said, "Come on in." But he said, "Don't start nothing." Now, I've told you many times before, I grew up in the poor days up here in Cass County, Indiana, back there in the old 20s and the 30s. It was tough. My gosh, I know one cold winter day, I had a roaring fire in the living room, and my dad come home, and was he mad? We didn't have a fireplace. But you know, we had jobs for everybody. Back in those days, you were poor, but you were proud. You didn't want your neighbors to know you was poor. And it was my job every morning at 4:30 to go out in the yard and crow like a rooster. Make the neighbors think we had chicken. Of course, later on, we did get chickens, and, we got in a terrible situation. One of our old hens went down to the neighbors and laid an egg in his garden. Well, Dad, by gosh, in those days we needed that egg. So he went down to get the egg. But the neighbor met him. Said, "Wait a minute, you can't get that egg." Well, Dad said, "It was my hen that laid that egg." Guy said, "I can't help that." He said, "This is my garden. The egg's in my garden." Well, Dad said, "That ain't right. That darned egg wouldn't have been there if my hen hadn't laid it." Well, they were getting heated up, and finally Dad said, "Now, wait a minute. Let's settle this peaceably. We don't need to hire a lawyer. We don't need to call the police." Well, the guy said, "What do you want to do?" Well, Dad said, "I'll tell you what." He said, "I'll hit you in the mouth just as hard as I can hit you. And then he said, you hit me in the mouth just as hard as you can hit me. And whichever one of us is left standing gets the egg." Huh. Well, the guy said, "That's all right with me." Well, Dad said, "I'm going to hit you first." And he wound up on this one, boy. He come clear from the ground back there with a haymaker. And he hit him for all he was worth. Well, that guy's eyes crossed, you know, and he walked backwards about 10 feet. Then he wobbled forward. But he stayed on his feet. And he said, "Now," he said, "it's my turn to hit you." Well, Dad said, "I've been thinking about it." Said, "You can just have that egg." But you know, education is awfully important today, and it was back in those days. Everybody tried to get a little more education, tried to get a better job. And I know I went to college down here, well, it was Indiana Central in those days, in Indianapolis. I went in there and to get a job, or to go to school actually, but then to get a job too, I had to have some money. Well, I saw an ad in the paper. Some woman over in Indianapolis had advertised for a butler. Well, I'd never buttled before, but I thought anything to get a little money. So I called her up, told her I was interested in her job. She said, "Well, you come on over, let me see you and visit with you." And she said, "Bring along some letters of recommendation." Well, I said, "All right." So I did. I went over. Nice lady. Now, she said, "Young man," she said, "we're of English extraction, so we would like for you, if you're going to be our butler, to wear a powdered wig." Well, I said, "I don't mind that, lady. That's all right with me. I don't care." And she said, "We want you to wear those knee pants, knee breeches." Well, I said, that's all right. I'll do that. Well, she said, "You're going to wear those knee breeches." She said, "I would like to see your legs." Well, now, I'd never had a woman ask me that before. Kind of embarrassed me. So I reluctantly pulled my britches up over my ankles, and she said, well, your ankles look all right, but said, these are knee pants. Said, pull their britches on up over your knees. Gosh, I hated to do that, but I did. I pulled them clear up over my knees. And she said, well, your knees look all right. That's okay. She said, now I'd like to take a look at your testimonials. Now, if I'd had a better education, I'd have got that job. One of the things I like to do up on the farm, I've talked to people today, I enjoy working with my cow herd up there. I got some beef cows, and that's my therapy. I enjoy that very much when I'm home. And the other day, I had a heck of a thing happen. I was driving one of my big old limousine bulls down the road. I was taking him over to another pasture to visit some girls over there. And that doggone bull laid down right in the middle of the road. And I couldn't move him. I'll tell you, he just laid there. And I spoke to him gently and then not so gently. Still wouldn't move, laid there. So I finally got a switch off of a tree there, and I started whacking him. Boy, he didn't move. I got a bigger switch, and I started laying it on him. About that time, somebody pulled up back up in the car and got out. There was a woman. And she was from the animal rights folks. Boy, she come up to me and says, say, you can't hit a dumb animal like that. That's not right. Well, I said, lady, I got to get this bull up out of the center of the road. Well, she said, let me show you how. Well, she went up there and bent down over that bull, and you know that bull jumped up and down the road he went, just as fast as he could go. Well, I said, lady, what in the dickens did you say to him? She said, I didn't say a word to him. Said, I just tickled him. Well, I said, lady, would you mind tickling me? I got to catch him. I think I'll tell the dog story. Huh? Can I tell the dog story? Don't tell it? Oh, come on. It's all right. Go on. Oh, listen, these people are adult folks. They won't care. I'm going to tell it anyhow. This dog walked into the tavern, and he got over and went up and sat on the bar stool. And he told the bartender, said, I'd like a Miller Lite. Well, the bartender said, we don't serve dogs in here, no animals. This is just a people place. Well, the dog said, all right, said, I'll have a Bloody Mary. The bartender said, I told you we don't serve dogs or cats in here. This is just a people place. Well, the dog said, I'll have a glass of rosé wine. Well, then the bartender was mad. He reached under the bar and got a revolver, and he shot that dog right in the right front foot. Oh, boy, the dog just howled. Out the door he went. Well, about a month later, it was just about sundown one evening, and the doors of that tavern swung open, and the dog stepped in. He was wearing a cowboy hat, spurs and his boots, and he had 2 guns strapped on him. He come up and he sat at the bar, and the bartender said, what can I do for you? And the dog said, I'm looking for the guy who shot my paw. Oh, gosh. I played the Hoosier Lottery last week. Gosh, I didn't win. You know how you can tell I didn't win? I'm here. Boy, I'll tell you, we had a woman up there in our area that won $11 million in the lottery. And I'll tell you, he called her husband at home. And she said, I just won $11 million in the lottery. He said, get your suitcases back. Well, he said, you want me to pack for summer clothes or winter clothes? She said, I don't care, just be out of that house when I get there. We got some fellas up in our area that we just have more fun with, and I think that's what makes it such an interesting place. We got one guy up there by the name of Herman Heimendinger, and Herman is a dandy fella, only he's been not in the best of health lately. He told me he's getting so darn weak that whenever he'd go to the movie, he couldn't keep his seat down. Now, you know that's getting pretty weak when you do that. So he went to the doctor to check him over, and the doctor checked him all over, and he said, by gosh, Herman, I got some bad news for you. He said, you could go any minute. Well, Herman said, that's good news. I haven't gone for about 4 days. Now, there's one thing that's changed, folks, you know, in the last few years. The old family doctor. My gosh, they don't have time anymore. We got fast foods and all this stuff fast. I remember the only fast food we used to have was prunes. Well, today everything's fast. I walked into my doctor the other day. I had a sore throat and told the nurse, I said, I got a sore throat. She said, go in the next room, take your clothes all off. Now, I said, I don't believe you heard me. I just got a sore throat. She said, now, we don't tell you how to run your business. Don't tell us how to run ours. Said, get in that next room. Oh, she was real sharp with it. So I did, man. I went in there. Just a little room. Wasn't very big. And I pulled that string, and there I stood, you know. Barefoot up to my eyeballs. And there was another guy in there. Dressed the same way. Nothing. And he was 6'10", this guy. It was embarrassing just talking to him. I said, isn't this ridiculous? I said, I just had a sore throat. They made me take all my clothes off. He said, what are you griping about? He said, I'm here to tune the piano. Then we got another fella up home there. My gosh, he used to work for me some, and he just does odd jobs around, and a fella by the name of Harley Codds. And old Harley, for years, he had bad breath. And he, he tried everything. He used to breathe into his hand, and then smell it. And he spent hundreds of dollars on mouthwashes and stuff, and then he found out it was his hand that stunk. He'd try anything, though. You got to give a person credit to try to get a job and things. He went over to the post office to get a job, and they thought, by golly, maybe they ought to test him, see what he knew. And so they asked him, he said, Harley, he said, can you name 2 days in the week that begin with the letter T? And Harley said, today and tomorrow. Well, that wasn't what they wanted, but they had to admit it was true, Then he tried another one. He said, Harley said, how many seconds in a year? Well, he said 12. I said, 12? How do you get that? Well, he said, there's January 2nd, February 2nd, March 2nd. Again, they had to say that was right. So they gave him one more test. They said, Harley, can you tell me how many D's there are in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer? And he said, 124. Well, I said, how do you get that? Well, he said, D, 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 D. He got the job. Oh, gosh. He is a character. I found him by a guy out in a coffee shop one day, figuring on a napkin. He had an old short lead pencil, figuring there. I said, Harley, what are you figuring there? Well, he said, Stubby, he said, my wife's on a diet, and she claims she's losing 4 pounds a week. Now, he said, if my figures are correct, in about 18 months, I'll be rid of her completely. We were talking earlier, somebody asked me if I was in World War II. Yes, I was. You remember World War II, it was in all the papers. And I was in there, and I'll tell you, I went through quite a bit. I was in Okinawa, and I was in an outpost, a little cabin out in the jungle there. Just me and the general was in there. And I tell you, it was pretty frightening. And the general said, Stubby, I wonder how many Japanese are right in this area. Well, I said, just a minute, sir, I'll check. I got down on my hands and knees, put my ear to the floor, and I said, 21. Well, he said, gee, I wonder if they're carrying arms, and what kind are they? I said, just a minute, sir. Got down on my hands and knees again, put my ear to the floor. I come back up. I said, 7 of them are carrying rifles, 7 of them machine guns, and 7 of them hand grenades. Well, he said, that's amazing. He said, you can tell all that just by listening to the floor. Well, I said, who's listening to the floor? I'm looking at him through the crack under the door. Oh, gosh. You'd have been proud of me in World War II, I'll tell you. Right in the thick of the battle, folks. By gosh, I didn't run. Now, I passed some guys that were running. My wife, I've got to tell you, folks, I'm so darn proud that on September the 8th this year, my wife and I celebrated our 52nd wedding anniversary. Oh, yeah. She's a dandy, I'll tell you, and we just had a great time. Of course, I wanted to get her something real nice for our anniversary. So I went into a place, a shop there, and get some perfume. And this girl brought out a bottle of it, pretty good size. I said, how much is that? She said, $50. I said, no way, too much. I said, give me something cheaper. Well, she brought out another bottle, about half that size. I said, what's that? Well, she said, that's $25. I said, lady, that's still too high. I said, cut her down, something cheaper. She brought out a little $10 bottle, just a little there, $10, and handed it to me. I said, no, wait a minute. I said, that's not it. I said, I want to see something cheap. Well, she handed me a mirror. That's terrible, But we get along good, folks. I tell you, I can't say enough good things about her. And I found out one of the secrets of married life is be good to your mother-in-law. Always be good to her. And I always was. I know one time my wife said, do you mind if my mother comes down for the weekend? And I said, why? Well, she said she's getting awful tired of the attic. No, that's not true. I can't. She's just a delightful lady, and we have spent some wonderful years together, and I hope we got a lot more good ones left. We've got 7 grandkids. We're so darn proud of them, and we spoil them pretty good, too, I'll tell you. But you know, I don't know whether she told you a while ago that I'm a Ph.D., too. I'm post-hole digger. And I was keeping the grandkids, all 7 of them one day, the mothers and grandma going shopping. And I was at home there digging a post hole, and one of the little grandkids come up and said, Grandpa said, let's hear you croak like a frog. I said, go on, can't you see I'm busy here? I'm digging a hole here. And they left. Pretty soon another one come up and said, Grandpa said, let's hear you croak like a frog. I said, I'm digging a post hole here. Don't bother me. You kids get on and play. My gosh, I was tamping it in, and pretty soon a little 6-year-old boy's come up. And he said, Grandpa, let's hear you croak like a frog. I said, wait a minute. What do you kids all want me to croak like a frog for? Well, he said, the folks said that we could go to Disneyland as soon as Grandpa croaks. We get along all right. I tell you, we're going to do a little song here on the old harmonica. Not too many playing these things anymore, but this is one I used to play on the old National Barn Dance Saturday night in Chicago. And I'd like to do a little song here for you entitled, If Your Mother-in-Law Gets Her Toe Hooked in the Sheet, Let Her Rip. See if you remember this old-timer. Thank you. That's Home Sweet Home, huh? What makes up a good home sweet home, you know? Now, sir, I'll tell you another thing that makes a home is kids and children. That's true. I heard this about this fellow that called this home, and a little boy answered. The little boy answered, he says, "Hello." Well, the fellow says, "Son, is your dad there?"
He said, "Yes."
"Can I speak to him?"
"No, he's busy."
Well, I said, "Is your mother there?"
He said, "Yes."
"Can I speak to her?"
"No, she's busy."
Well, he said, "Hey, is anybody else there?"
Little kid said, "A policeman."
"Policeman? Can I speak to him?"
"No, he's busy."
"Well, is there anybody else there?"
"A fireman."
"Fireman? Can I speak to him?"
"No, he's busy too."
Guy said, "Wait a minute. Your dad's busy, your mom's busy, the policeman's busy, fireman's busy. What are they doing?"
He said, "They're looking for me."
I was telling you about my home sweet home. I love the old cows and stuff. I was out in the pasture field the other night, just about dark, and a politician pulled up in his big machine. And he wanted to see me. He crawled over. It's getting pretty dark. Crawled over there in the field where I was in the pasture. And he had a toupee on. And the darn wind got under that toupee and blew it out through my cow pasture there. And that poor guy looking for it, he thought he found it 3 times. Tried on 2 of them. Another thing, of course, that you find in most home sweet homes is a good church attendance. I know we do at my place. You know, I'm going to the same church that I went to as a little kid. I was baptized in this church, but after living in New York City and Cincinnati and Chicago, came right back to where I grew up, and I'm going to the same church. And, well, gosh, it's a nice church. We had lots of good ministers down through the years, and well, we had one minister, I remember, met a bad end. He was up in Canada hunting. Had his gun ready up there, hunting deer and elk, and by gosh, out of the woods stepped a great big brown bear. That son of a gun stood up on his hind legs. He was about 9 feet tall. That preacher tried to cock that gun. He got excited and he couldn't do it. He finally just looked skyward and he said, "Lord, make this bear a Christian." And that bear folded his paws in front of him and said, "Lord, I thank thee for this meal I'm about to receive." Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.